Let me ask you a serious question real quick. When was the last time you saw a major rap star drop an album and immediately get embarrassed by the numbers? Because that's exactly what's happening right now with 21 Savage. After releasing his brand new album, What Happened to the Streets? The reaction online hasn't been excitement. It's been confusion, disappointment, and straight-up ridicule. Fans expected a statement. Instead, what they got was a reality check. And the craziest part? This didn't happen 5 years after his last album. This happened 1 year later. So today, we're breaking down what these numbers really mean, why people are saying 21 Savage might be falling off, how this connects to a much bigger shift in hip-hop, and whether this moment could permanently damage his legacy. But before we get into all that, support me by liking this video and subscribing to this channel. It helps a lot. Now let's talk about the stats, because this is where everything spiraled. On its first day, What Happened to the Streets? Pulled in 13.1 million Spotify streams. At first glance, that might sound decent until you put into context. Just 1 year ago, 21 Savage's previous album opened with 42.1 million streams on day one. That's not a small dip. That's not a minor decline. That's a free fall. When you line this album up against the rest of his career, I Was, Savage Mode 2, Her Loss, American Dream. Every single one of those projects comfortably outperformed this release, which is why the internet didn't waste any time. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't about the music anymore. It was about whether 21 Savage had officially lost his grip on relevance. Once those numbers hit the timeline, the narrative formed instantly. People started saying 21 Savage is washed, that he's coasting, that he's becoming irrelevant in real time. And look, numbers don't tell the whole story, but they do tell you one thing very clearly: how much people care. Compared to American Dream, this album retained only about 1/3 of the audience on day one. That's not just people disliking an album. That's people not even showing up. And when an artist of 21 Savage's stature starts losing attention that fast, it raises a very uncomfortable question. Is this just one bad rollout, or a sign of something much bigger? Here's where it gets even more concerning. When you look at other rap albums released in 2025, you realize just how far 21 Savage has slipped. He's being outperformed, or at least rivaled, by artists people never would have expected to be in the same conversation. Projects from artists like Mac Miller, with posthumous material recorded years ago. Artists like Lil Tecca, Central C, and others are competing in the same streaming territory. That alone should tell you something is off, because a year ago, 21 Savage would have easily landed in the top 3 debuts. No debate, no discussion. Now, he's fighting for relevance in a much more crowded, much more demanding landscape. Now, some fans try to spin this. They pointed out that 21 Savage still outstreamed Clips, and they mocked the debut numbers of Nas and DJ Premier's new album. But that argument completely misses the point. Artists like Nas and Clips are not streaming era acts. Their audiences behave differently. About half of their listeners bought physical copies, CDs, vinyl, or directly purchased the album. That's why if you check platforms like iTunes, Nas' album is sitting at number 1, even above 21 Savage's project. Streaming numbers aren't a one-to-one comparison across generations. But when a modern streaming-era superstar barely separates himself from legacy acts who don't rely on streaming, that's a warning sign. Here's where this conversation gets uncomfortable. 21 Savage isn't alone. Look at the numbers for Drake, Young Thug, Lil Baby, even Lil Wayne recently. Across the board, this entire side of hip-hop is seeing declines. Meanwhile, artists like Kendrick Lamar, Tyler the Creator, Playboi Carti, and even niche acts who fully lean into their lane are thriving. Why? Because the bar has been raised. Albums like G-Nex and Chromacopia didn't just do numbers, they created moments. They felt important. They felt intentional. And once listeners taste that level of care, it's hard to go back. One of the most alarming signs isn't even the total streams. It's how people are listening. If you look at the track-by-track data, a massive chunk of listeners didn't even make it halfway through the album. From track 1 to track 14, engagement steadily drops. That tells us something critical. People aren't invested enough to stay. In the streaming era, Boredom is fatal. If the first few tracks don't grab you, listeners don't give it time. They leave instantly. And that's exactly what happened here. Now, let me be clear. This album is not unlistenable. There are solid moments. Step Brothers with Young Nudie has one of the best beats of the year. The second half of the album, especially tracks 9 through 14, is noticeably stronger. But that's also the problem. The album gets good too late. The Drake feature? Widely considered terrible. The opening stretch? Flat. Repetitive. Safe. In an era where attention spans are razor thin, starting slow is a death sentence. And when you stack this album against 21 Savage's past work, it lacks the highs that once defined him. This is where expectations truly collapsed. When you title an album, What Happened to the Streets? You're promising a conversation, a reflection, a diagnosis of hip-hop's current state, especially in a moment where the culture is questioning authenticity, loyalty, and integrity. 21 Savage was perfectly positioned to address this. Atlanta rap needed a voice. Street rap needed context. Instead, we got another familiar 21 Savage album. Some good tracks, some forgettable ones, but no real statement. This could have been Atlanta's answer to GNX. Not musically identical, but conceptually meaningful. And that opportunity was missed. Now let's talk about the rollout, because this might have done more damage than the album itself. Just hours before release, 21 Savage sat down for a major interview and barely talked about the music. No vision, no explanation, no reason for fans to care. Instead, the internet latched onto his controversial takes, defending Drake, rewriting beef history, making wild comments about Atlanta, and even suggesting a crash-out city. Those moments went viral, but not in a way that led people back to the album. When your rollout becomes louder than your music, you've already lost. At this point, a pattern is impossible to ignore. Drake, Lil Baby, Young Thug, 21 Savage. Different artists, same issue. The music has become secondary. The personality has become primary, influencing viral moments, interviews, clout, all before craftsmanship. And audiences feel that disconnect. That's why this side of hip-hop is losing ground, while artists who prioritize vision, storytelling, and intention are thriving. This isn't hip-hop dying. This is certain artists refusing to evolve. So where does this leave 21 Savage? This album isn't a total failure, but it is a warning. If the numbers don't rebound, if the audience doesn't re-engage, if the next move lacks purpose, this moment could permanently reshape how he's viewed in the culture. I'd love to see him prove everyone wrong. I'd love to see him lock in and reclaim the hunger that built his career. But history suggests otherwise. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think 21 Savage is truly falling off? Was this album misunderstood, or exactly what the numbers suggest? And what do you think hip-hop is headed next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Remember to like this video and subscribe to this channel if you haven't. And as always, stay active.